Starfield has people divided. Some people are saying it's a 10 out of 10, best game that's ever come out, while others are kind of saying how Bethesda's been lacking lately. Which begs the question, should you buy this game? So I thought of the worst analogy possible in order to explain or evaluate the situation at hand with us. Imagine Bethesda's a restaurant, and anytime you get something off the menu, you tend to like it. Now, here comes Starfield, and it's the same food you've always liked before, a new dish, but this time there's a dick on top of it. Where a lot of the people who like the game just say, hey, just take the dick off the plate and don't even worry about it, eat the food you enjoy, where the other half is kind of being like, why is there a dick on my plate in the first place? Where do I stand in this? I like the game, but I definitely have criticisms. And let's go ahead and get those criticisms out of the way and talk about the bad stuff. Now, Bethesda's always been known for their bugs and games not really launching at the best conditions, and this game doesn't really have as many, or they're not as bad as previous titles. Though I did run into one game-breaking bug. There are your occasional, like, your companions will sprint out of the room and get stuck somewhere, but they usually dislodge themselves out. But there's nothing crazy, you know, maybe people appear out in space, maybe some people don't have spacesuits when they're supposed to. For me, what broke the game was every once in a while NPCs will have to guide you somewhere and you'll have to do the classic, oh my gosh, the NPC walks slower than I can run, or they walk too fast for me to walk. It's just this weird, awkward pace. But they would guide you somewhere and they themselves would get stuck. They would get lost, or they would forget what they were doing and they would stop guiding you entirely, making it to where you can't progress the game until they get to that location and there's not really any way to move them. And usually the solution was I just load a previous save and make back a couple of minutes, because this happened to me multiple times. But in this case, I had started a quest, realized I wanted to do a different quest, didn't realize the guy bugged out in front of me, went out and did all those other quests, came back to do the quest, and was hard stuck. And it was one of the major stories in the game that I just was locked out of now and couldn't do anything about unless I wanted to retrek hours worth of time. So I just never got to experience that. And the experience of Starfield itself has many saying that it's chopped full of loading screens and dubbing it Starfield.
Holy shit.
Because, I mean, looking at the game, graphically, it's not that impressive. Like, you're like staring at something that looks like it's a decade old. Like, if anything, it looks like you've gone in a time machine to experience an older game. And yeah, the face models are definitely lacking to a degree. They try with the voice actors. I mean, the voice actors are giving it their all and they give amazing performances from time to time, but the faces don't do them any justice.
Hell you just say to me?
Yeah, that's right.
I gotta...
Let's fight then,
Andy,
bitch!
sit down.
Come on!
You. Don't appreciate some stray wandering into my bar, harassing my patrons.
Oh, shut the fuck
Even the
up.
ones-
As for the loading screens, it's kind of ridiculous when we are playing games in a day and age where companies go out of their way to hide the loading screen from us. I mean, look at God of War. Anytime you're walking on a ledge or climbing something, it's just loading the next area for you. There's just these little things that we can catch on and be like, oh, it's probably just loading the next area. Bethesda is just like fade to black, fade to black, fade to black, or a loading screen. And they've done this for decades now, and it's just kind of like, well, like, why? A big topic that has people crossed is kind of the exploration in the game, where I see a lot of defenders of the game saying that, well, this isn't a space simulator exploration, this isn't No Man's Sky, it's Bethesda, it's story-based. And I still have to agree that exploration's lacking in this game. Not only were we promised exploration, but it's not the same as previous titles. It's even worse than like Fallout 4's exploration. Think about it for a little bit. Remember just walking around in Fallout 4 and you run into the Swan? You can just stumble across that, or leaving the outskirts to see where the nuke landed, only to find a small residential group of mutated freaks creating a village. Or what about in Skyrim, where you just had like a base world where you could walk around and you're on a main quest and you just just happen to stumble across a dungeon that you can't help but mark on your map to come back to later, or the first time you experience running into a giant and they don't speak to you, but they are able to show you through their actions to stay away from them. Moments like that don't really happen in Starfield because the maps are very contained and they don't really give you the ability to go find things for yourself. Sure, I think it's really cool that you could be walking in the streets and someone's talking about something and it immediately starts a quest, but everything's turned into just, oh, here's an icon over here, go to that. There's an icon over here, go to that. I'm not really exploring. I am just being told there's an event that I can partake in at this area. I'm going to kind of twist the blade a little bit because whenever you do go out to these planets or you do go to do these side missions or even some of the main missions, once you've seen one of the planets, you've seen all of the planets. They are all just desolated rocks with some sand, dirt, and jagged rocks here and there. There's nothing special about them. Maybe gravity acts different. Maybe you can't jump as high in some places. Maybe your oxygen gets taken away more. But for the most part, you're not experiencing anything new anytime you go to a planet. This changes with the handcrafted planets. They have more character and personality and tell a story about the world. But even some of the handcrafted planets are kind of silly to look at, where they just take one of the planets that look like Mars and put some palm trees around the area and call it paradise. And when you are on these like desolated planets, and I get it, most planets in the solar system look like this, but do most planets also include terramorphs or alien species that will attack you on sight? Come on. Where's the line? But there's nothing to do on these planets. There's no reason to mine for minerals or resources because if you go to a general goods vendor, they sell everything you need for really cheap, actually. And it's so easy to make money in this game. It's like, why would I spend time using my laser cutter to mine things and then go to the next rock and be like, oh, this isn't what I need. I hope I can find it at the next place. And then also, like, with aliens and wildlife, it's very sparse. Most of the time you are just walking. Really, it feels like a waste of time to explore these other planets, and you're better off just staying at the handcrafted worlds where all the side missions and quests are at. However, when you are in these handcrafted worlds where most of the side missions and absolutely just about all of the content is at, they had the genius idea of getting rid of the map. There's no mini map. There's a compass. Even whenever you open up like your exploratory map, you can't see anything. You're just seeing icons on there, major landmarks, not even like shops or locations or anything like that. It's baffling, and you have to memorize everything. People say it takes about 12 hours for you to start enjoying the game. Why should it take any amount of hours for me to start enjoying the game? Why can't I just have fun with the game right from the start? But I get it. It takes 12 hours to cement yourself into the world, to understand how to play the game, to get a decent amount of money to do whatever you want with it, and to also use your ship and understand the mechanics of how everything works, and to get inside of the story. The story is all right. It's not that great. Even though we are going back to like Oblivion-esque type of play style and storytelling, the main story itself is very lackluster. It's repetitive, and you have to go find these temples and just explore them, but also you're doing the same mini game where you get to float around and catch these little stars, and it's cute the first time, but when that's what 80-60% of the main story is, it just gets redundant and repetitive, and it's like, oh, I came all this way just for here. What Bethesda's really good at is lore building. Anytime you're talking to anyone, main story, side mission, or anything of the likes, they're really good at building their world and expressing what it is. There are a couple of exceptions, but we're talking about the rule and not the couple of great storylines you can stumble across. The ship was a main selling point in the game, and it's all but useless until you hit that 12-hour mark. I say this because you can later upgrade your ship and you can have crafting benches inside of it, which become useful, especially if you pick up the crafting perk. But if that's not something you go down, then I guess it still ends up being useless. The reason I say it's useless is because you don't really need your ship for anything but space combat. And if you are someone that wants to avoid space combat, then you don't need your ship. You can travel anywhere just from pulling up your map, your main menu, and then picking a destination and then going over there. You can't fly your ship on the surface of planets. There's no point in flying your ship in space unless you want to scan things for minerals, but I mean, just go to the general shop and buy everything that you need. And when it comes to space combat, it doesn't happen frequent enough for you to really excuse constantly being on your ship. Matter of fact, it becomes kind of annoying because sometimes you enter a dungeon and because they're procedurally generated, there's no back door. It's like they did this back in Skyrim. Why are they getting rid of our back door? So now you got to backtrack out of the dungeon because some of the dungeons you can fast travel out of. But some of the other dungeons you can't fast travel out of. I every time I think I figure out what dungeons I can fast travel out of and which ones I can't, the game's like, nope, not this one. Yeah, you could do this one. It feels kind of random. I think there's a pattern. Someone tell me if there's a pattern. And then some dungeons have back doors to them. Those are the handcrafted ones that are part of the major storylines or side missions. Somehow I got off of a tangent right here. Basically, you don't need your ship, and it becomes annoying whenever you fast travel somewhere and they stop you because it's the first time you visited this planet, but there's no random occurrence. There's been so many times you fast travel to a new planet, and instead of just landing on the planet immediately, you are on the orbit of the planet. There's no pirates, there's no one scanning you, and then I gotta press the button again to land on the planet, whether opening up my map or opening up the planet map. Basically, I spent too many times pressing the button to open up my map to travel somewhere instead of engaging in the world itself to travel. I'm doing a lot of time in menus. And this isn't a problem if the game leans into those accessories. Like we just got done playing Armored Core 6, which is nothing but menus going to mission to mission, but that game doesn't try to be an open world. Bethesda does, yet the merits that it tries to provide you fail. Now, I'm going to transition into talking about the good things about the game. Since we're talking about the ship is one of the things that you can ignore, but also the ship can also be the best part of the game. It could be the part of the game where you can experience the most role-playing type and immerse yourself in your own imagination. Also, the ship building in this game is actually really cool. It took me a little bit to figure it out because I'm kind of dense when it comes to that kind of stuff. But once you get the hang of it and you learn to attach things and you see the different parts you can get, you can be crazy creative. Whether it's just wanting to build a giant penis in space that flies around shooting things from the tip. I gotta stop talking about penises. Whether it's living your sci-fi fantasy dreams and creating a huge ship to hold all your companions that's architecturally perfect in your mind, or min-maxing the game and creating a spaceless cube where you take advantage of the AI shooting just nothing but thin air, there's a ship design out there for you. And as much as the NASA punk theme didn't really vibe well with me personally, the ship interiors look fantastic. They feel grounded whenever your person clicks buttons or messes around, or you see how messy the ship can be, or just how clean and sleek the designs can be from the different corporations. It is just marvelous to look at, and it gives this home feeling because that's what the ship ends up being. It's this portable home that you can take place to place, and as you level up your own social skills, you can add as many crewmates as you want to the ship. And while we're talking about the good, everything that's good about the game is really the fact that it's just a Bethesda game. And I kind of hate saying that. I hate that the name of the company alone is what's giving it merit. But if you've played a Bethesda game before and you're familiar with how the role-playing aspect works and how the combat works, it's going to carry over to here. They've kind of refined the combat and they've moved things around. Space combat is pretty generic, but they added the VAT system to it if you upgrade to it, which makes it more dynamic and allowing you to board people's ships and steal their ships and do what you want with them, which turns out to be quite, the escapade. Not only that, but you can gain powers in this game that allow you to feel like a Jedi, and it adds more dynamic in the combat. I never use them, mainly because I forgot about them. Not that they're lacking or they're bad. They're actually really, really strong and worth using and getting. I don't know. Once you become a walking tank that can shoot everything, you just kind of get used to that, The enemies come in a lot of varieties, and where I was a bit disappointed in the Terramorphs, they're kind of like the Death Claws or the dragons for this universe. They're just, they're like Death Claws, but bigger and tankier, so they're not as fast, and they don't really have that many projectiles. They're just really not that hard to deal with. I was disappointed, but the game does do a good job at giving you a variety of enemies to fight, whether it's little scuttly aliens that swarm you or big aliens that maybe trick you by jumping back and showing how agile they are. Humans are like all the same. They shoot you or they melee you. That hasn't changed. But depending on what faction you fight is depending on what type of things you might have to face. So if you have to fight spacers, you usually have to deal with laser weapons, or if you have to fight pirates, you usually have to deal with physical weapons. That's about it. Loot is very RNG. You can be a low level and find something that does crazy amount of damage. It didn't take long for me to stumble across my first legendary. It feels good when you find loot. Also, if you trek through some quest lines, you'll also get a good amount of loot. Not only that, but quests, again, stumble onto you. You could be killing a spacer and then find a tape recording that leads you on this grand Indiana Jones mission where you have to do like a puzzle, and then at the end of it they give you like a free ship and they give you a free outfit, and it's all legendary, and you feel super cool for discovering it just because you're looking at your notes. Other times, again, you're just walking and you end up talking to someone and you end up just liking the little like mission that you have to do for people, or the decisions you have to make. Persuasion, I don't understand how persuasion works. It's a little more complex than most games or in previous games where all you had to do was level up persuasion. You click the button. For what I understand, it's like you have to gauge the person you're talking to, understand what they like, and then lean into that when it comes to persuading them. Of course, you can upgrade it to where you have better chances to succeed at things I think they don't like to hear anyways. But I do like how you kind of have to work for the persuasion, and that in itself is a mini game. Right off the bat, there's already modders taking, in swarms to the game. So any problems that anyone might have with the game, you can just put a mod into it. You can have fun within your own way. There's already a lockpicking mod where you don't have to do the puzzle if you just get tired of doing them over and over again. And then, of course, there's some horny mods that, the rest of us can enjoy. But really, the meat and potato of the game is the side quests and missions that you can take on. After you're done with the story mission, there is a New Game Plus, which lets you skip the story and lets you play the game in a very new way that I don't want to spoil for you, but it was appreciative because I'm the type of person that doesn't really play a lot of side missions. I will burn through the main mission and then I'll go back and play the side missions right before I get to that point of no return for the game, and I'll just enjoy the side mission in the world knowing that I've already beat the game. That's how I usually play open world games and Bethesda games in general, and it's really cool to see that this game like caters that side of. I've never had a game cater to me like this one does in the New Game Plus. It like takes that into account, that you can go through it and then experience the world in your own way. It's really cool. And there is a point of no return in this game that they don't warn you about. So my play style just ended up really working for me because now I know where that is and I can enjoy the game the way I like to. This game does a great job at giving us the feeling of Bethesda games of old. but that also is kind of like a double-edged sword. It is a Bethesda game of old. It doesn't feel like I've playing something new. It feels like I've played something that was a decade old. And the thing is, yeah, Bethesda isn't making these games every year, so we don't get to feel those repetitions as much. I am disappointed in the lack of innovation that comes with this game, because everything new in this game feels like it's not really there. Other than that, I'm getting Fallout with a new slap of paint over it. There's no reason for me to use the ship unless I really want to. There's no reason for me to explore planets or really mine the resources, because they give me a far more efficient option to do so. They take away the exploration that the other games would give us, and they take away our own agency when it comes to being able to experience the game in our ways. The game not only feels the same, but takes a couple steps back, which is why I got to give Starfield a 6 out of 10. Until next time, guys, play nice. I like Starfield. I really do enjoy it. I mean, I'm playing it like off stream and stuff like that whenever I have free time. There's just a lot about it that it does feel lacking. It is interesting though. I wonder if Starfield released on all platforms, if it would get double the hate. Because like, if you ever look, I like to play this game. Whenever you see those people that are like crazy defending Starfield and you click on their account, they tend to be like Xbox fanboys. There's a lot of people just on Xbox side. And it's a lot of the Xbox people saying like, oh, PlayStation people are review bombing the game. And it just makes me wonder, like, if it was released, they wouldn't have that like fanboyism to sit there and protect the game itself. So, oh well, we'll see.